Hello, my name is Victor. Today I'll show you how to use the Bamboo Labs 3D printer in SCM. After you book the 3D printers online, you will be able to gain access to this room with your student card. Here, you will find a number of Bamboo Labs printer. They are the model P1S. Some of them are equipped with an automatic material switcher called the AMS. When you come to this room, you should bring along your own 3D printing material and of course your 3D printing file, ideally in a USB thumb drive. In SCM, we only allow the use of original PLA material that comes from Bamboo Labs. You can choose between the PLA Basic or what we have here today, the PLA Matte. This one has a slightly better surface finish. When you buy these materials, you can choose to buy them with or without the reusable plastic spool, which looks like this. If you buy the material with the spool, they come like this and it's already ready to use once you open the packaging. If you buy the material without the spool, then you will have to install this yourself. In this case, you can grab an empty spool from this room and install it yourself. You start by opening this spool and you realize that the tool has a slight difference, one of which has a little notch in here. On the other side, there is no notch. Then you open this plastic wrapper and be very careful when you handle this, because it's very important not to get these filaments loose. At the moment, it's very easy for them to get loose. In fact, these strips are there to make sure that they don't get loose. Do not remove them at this stage. Then, it's important to find out the corresponding notch on this empty spool, on this filament. It only exists on one side. Then simply install it from a downward position by aligning this notch to the notch on the corresponding spool. You might have to rotate it until it falls into place. Double check that it's actually rotationally stiff with the plastic casing, and then put the top part of the spool on it. Make sure that this is flat, not tilted. It's very easy not to have it installed properly. Then simply rotate until this drops down a little bit, and then keep rotating until you hear a click sound. Then double check that this alignment is with these two holes either pointing to an arrow here or with the PLA logo pointing to these two holes here. Make sure that this is rigid and it doesn't open up by itself, because once you remove these strips, and if this plastic case got loose, your whole filament will get ruined. And after checking, you can simply remove these plastic strips by pulling them out. There are totally 4 of them, and make sure that before you pull out the 4th one, hold the end of the filament in your hand before you pull out the final one. Because if this gets loose, your filament might tangle and you ruin the entire row of filament as well. You can temporarily tuck this into this hole on the spool holder to keep it nice and with tension. When installing the spool onto the machine, first place the spool onto this rack. At the same time, try and maintain some tension on the filament so it doesn't unwind. Then you want to insert the filament into this plastic tube. And you will have to push this filament all the way in. Do this until you feel there is some resistance. Then you can go into this menu and select the second tab and select this option. Then you choose load and then wait for the machine to heat up. The screen will tell you that it's currently heating the nozzle. When the temperature is ready, the screen will also tell you to push the filament further into the tube. And when that happens, put a gentle pressure onto the filament, pushing it into the tube. You should be able to feel that the filament is being grabbed by the machine. If you cannot feel that the machine is pulling the filament into, you can choose retry and repeat the pushing process until you feel that the filament is going into the machine a little bit. Once that is okay, choose Done. And after you press the Done button, the machine will extrude a little bit of filament, and you can see that extruding from within the nozzle. This will take half a minute, and the screen will say purging old filament while it is doing this. When you're back into this panel, make sure that you go back to the first tab before you start printing. For the AMS to load material, it's much simpler. You do not need to interact with the screen on the printer. Simply open this door, put the filament reel into one of the slots, and then tuck the end of the filament into the receptacle here. You will need to push the receptacle up a tiny bit and then tuck the material in. The machine will start to do calibration by itself, and it will even automatically detect the type of filament you put in. Then make sure that you close this box because there is a dehumidifier inside. Again, you do not need to interact with the printer's screen. And that's it. You will need to log in this computer. The password is the same as the username. Then navigate to your USB thumb drive. And ideally, you should have already bring with you the 3MF file that contains both your 3D printing geometry and your slicer settings. You can prepare this file on your own computer. Once you're here, you should press the Slice button again. Double check if there are any warnings. In this case, for example, it has a cantilever warning. Double check the printing time and the filament usage. And then if that is okay with the slicing result, and if the slicing result is okay, you can send this to one of the printers. Check on the printer cover the machine number. They can be selected here. For the printers that does not have an AMS, you will not see a correct color result. But if you select a printer that has AMS, you would be able to select which filament you want to use. For example, here, I can choose whether I'm using the white filament or the black filament in which of the slots in the AMS. And if that's okay, you can then send the file to the machine. After this file is being sent and the software switch to the monitoring window, you no longer need this software. You can simply close this software and leave this machine for the next person to use if they are sending another file to another machine. When you send the file to the machine, it will heat up its nozzle, and then it will first perform a bed leveling calibration. This process will take a few minutes. Please be patient, because it is important for you to watch at least the first few layers of the print before you leave this room. It is important to make sure that this layer sticks really well to the bed. If you're not happy with the results of the first layer, you can always press the select button and go to the stop sign. If you press OK, you can quit the printing job. At this point, the print bed will lower, and you can then clean off the bed and restart the printing process. When the printing is complete, you can open this door and pick up this magnetic printing platform. like this. You want to pick it up from an upward position towards upwards. And then be careful, it might still be hot. And once it cools down, you can bend this plate slightly and your object is very likely to peel off like this. For smaller objects, you might have to scratch it with your fingernails for it to come off nicely. There is also a tiny bit of initial extrusion here that is also important to remove it. Try to avoid touching the surface of this print plate. Otherwise, it might not stick very well because of the oil from your finger. Reinstall this panel back into the machine by aligning the inside tab. Make sure that it's equal on both left and the right side, and make sure that you've pointed the correct direction in. It's possible to flip around this panel and use the bottom side as well. Both the bottom side and the top side are usable. However, make sure that this side is pointing inwards. You can then unload your material. You go back to the same option on the second page of this manual and choose the unload option. The machine will then heat up the nozzle again, and once the temperature is reached, it will unwind the filament. When the machine is doing that, you can pull very gently onto the filament, and you should be able to feel that the filament is coming out of the machine. Don't pull very hard. Pull only very gently. The filament should come out very naturally. And at this point, you can unwind the filament back onto the spool. Make sure you keep holding onto the end of the filament. And you can tuck it back into the hole that is on the spool to avoid this getting untangled. In order to unload the filament, you simply lift up this receptacle by pushing this upwards, and then you can pull this filament out directly.